CNN spoke about all the important issues here. This is Anderson Cooper and his panel yesterday. Let's check it out.
This is not how you win the Rust Belt, with apologies to someone who, is from there. In my opinion, going to college in West Virginia from Western Maryland, most of the folks that I know do not identify with Meryl Streep. This is a turnoff to Middle America.
Well, I mean, she wouldn't be such a hugely popular actress if she didn't have a massive amount of following. And she is enormously well-liked. She's not your typical, it's not like she's Rosie O'Donnell or something. She's somebody who's been married for almost 40 years. She's a bit of a different package than you might otherwise ascribe to a liberal Hollywood.
I mean, she, whether you agree she should have made this speech, whether you liked what she said or not, or thought it was just this liberal elite, whatever, it was certainly clearly a heartfelt, thoughtful.
But why do you bring it up? Why do you bring it up at that moment and inject politics?
That his comeback is she's overrated is just kind of like, really? That's what the comeback is?
It's adolescent.
CNN, the most trusted name in news, or what is it, the number one name in news, or the most trusted name, whatever the fuck it is. Look at what they're talking about. You have a political panel. This is their conversation. Meryl Streep. They're referring to, she gave a speech the other night at whatever the fuck it was. I don't even follow the award shows. Golden Globes, something, whatever. And she, she gave a speech that was anti-Trump, and she said a few things that were tone deaf. Like she said, she went after, I think, the NFL and MMA. Like she was kind of patting Hollywood on the back and saying, if it wasn't for us, there would only be the MMA and NFL, which is not art. And people in the MMA community were like, actually, when you learn more about MMA, it's not just people bashing each other's face in. There's a lot of strategy behind it, and watching a fight unfold is like watching art because it's a very calculated and smooth, and it could be a beautiful thing. But so it was a little tone deaf. And then there was the thing she said about, she basically said Hollywood are maligned victims. Cry me a river into your giant piles of cash. Yeah, a little tone deaf, but her heart was in the right place because she went on to say, hey, we care about freedom of the press, and she shouted out this organization which is dedicated to freedom of the press, and she said it's more important than ever under Trump because he's a bully, and all that stuff was true, of course. So, whatever, I have mixed feelings on it, but it's irrelevant because it's a fucking speech by an actor who gives a shit. But CNN is all over it. And then Trump said this in response, and really? That's your response? Anderson, you're a fucking news anchor. You're a journalist. You're a reporter. This is what you're choosing to talk about? You watching this, I kept having pop up in my head all those facts that we always bring up on the show, which require so much more attention. For example, half the country makes $30,000 a year or less. So half the country is in poverty. Watching them talk about Meryl Streep and Donald Trump tweeting about her, and that wasn't a good response. It makes you think we don't live in a country that has actual issues to talk about and actual important things that should be covered, like that fact. Or like the fact, don't even just talk about the U.S., what about the world? 62 people have more wealth than 3.5 billion people. 62 people more wealth than half the world. You think maybe that deserves a long segment? You think maybe it deserves a segment? We spent, trillions of dollars, trillions, on a new plane to bomb people, and it doesn't even fly. I'm lying. I think they recently fixed the it doesn't fly problem, but we wasted trillions of dollars on a new fighter jet because obviously the old ones weren't good enough. You know what I'm saying? This is the fucking world we live in. You can't talk about the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of homeless people. You can't talk about the fact that we have over 50,000 homeless veterans. You can't talk about the fact that 45,000 people die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. That's not more important. That doesn't take precedence over fucking Meryl Streep and Donald Trump and them tweeting and shit. It's just gross, man. It's just gross. We bailed out Wall Street to the tune of over $12 trillion. 12 trillion. The war in Iraq costs 7 trillion when all is said and done. These trillions. Now, as that's going on, Flint, Michigan doesn't even have clean water. We can't even get clean water. Our infrastructure gets a grade of D. So look at our fucking disgusting priorities and all these giant problems we have. We don't have universal health care like every other modern nation. We have student loan debt of over $1 trillion. We have a derivatives market, which is probably going to crash any day now. And these, look at what they're talking about. Meryl Streep and fucking Donald Trump. I get it, Trump's the president, but Meryl Streep feuding with him and him calling her overrated, who cares? I'm angry, as you could tell. But, from a selfish perspective, I should be happy because this is why we do well. This is why new media is exploding, because old media is just a bunch of establishment puppets and people who have a neutrality bias, always call it 50-50, and a sensationalism bias. Let's talk about fucking Meryl Streep instead of serious issues. Well, thank you for handing over the bulk of the market to me because I'll be over here talking about real issues, and I think people want to hear about them because it affects them directly.